An NFL insider reveals the Chiefs' draft strategy, and we're going to talk about it.
You're listening to All Chiefed Up.
How's it going? How's it going, Chiefs Kingdom? Let's go, baby. It's Saturday night, Mike. We could be doing a lot of things on a Saturday night, but you know what we're doing? We're spending our time with you guys, talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. So do us a favor, hit the like button, get it out to more people, and help your boys out. Mike, you know what Albert Breer had to say?
What?
He said, an offensive tackle, maybe a guy such as Connerly or Simmons slips to them. And now throw him into the mix with incoming left tackle Jalen Moore and up and down veteran right tackle Jawan Taylor, but that's projecting a lot. So he's saying that they should go tackle in the draft. He's saying that's
Connerly or Simmons slips.
Exactly. But he's saying that's what they prefer, that they prefer to go tackle. Do you think they prefer to go tackle? And then we'll go on a little further in this.
No. I think they prefer best player available. And I think there's probably 4 or 5 positions there. I don't rule out tackle, but I don't think
It's
I
the
don't
end
think
all
tackle's
be
the
all.
end all be all. No.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I don't think that they have to do anything. That's what I've been trying to say. Brett Veach kind of set this roster up during free agency to allow him to draft best player available. But Albert Breer goes on, Mike. He says it's more likely that the best quality of player is available at defensive tackle or running back, though,
Okay.
based on the strength of the draft class. At the former, Michigan's Kenneth Grant, Oregon's Derek Harmon, or Ole Miss's Walter Nolan would all represent really good value at 31. At the latter, assuming Boise State's Ashton Genty and North Carolina's Amarion Hampton are gone, Ohio State's Travion Henderson or Quinshon Judkins, and Iowa's Caleb Johnson could be options. The idea of Henderson in KC is pretty freaking enticing. Well, what do you think, Mike? We keep saying best player available. He's saying they prefer tackle if Simmons or Connerly is there, but best value would be Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan, one of the defensive tackles. But a lot of people want a good running back in here. They want a fiery, top-notch running back. They're tired of the 7th-round guys.
This is why you have a big board. This is why the Chiefs rank players, and this is why you don't overdraft. So there is no way in the world Travion Henderson on anybody's draft board is going to be above Josh Connerly or Simmons. Like, I don't see that happening. It may be 1 or 2 teams randomly would have that happening. Otherwise, I don't see it happening. I think
Doubtful.
those 2 are top 35 to 40 players, and Travion Henderson's getting closer to that 50 range. Somebody could have them way up there. But again, they're not there. Walter Nolan and them, those guys, him and Derek Harmon's probably somewhere between 30 and 40 as well. For me, some people could have those guys if they really fall in love with them. Top 30, I would say somewhere between 20 and 30. So, I mean, you would have to start looking at your board there if you wanted Derek Harmon or Walter Nolan in reference to, you know, Simmons or you know, another tackle you love. I even seen Gray Zabel getting mocked to us earlier today, and that's wild because he's a swing lineman up and
He's
down.
going to be
He's
a
not
guard.
really.
He's going to be a damn good guard, though.
He's not going to be necessarily a great left tackle in this league. Even at right tackle, I think he would struggle a little bit. I think it's a guard type thing. The people that think that we're just going to go replace left guard because Joe Tooney's gone now, in my opinion, is wild. Like, they're starting to pick up steam for us to draft. Who is it? That guard out of Alabama. I'm starting to see that in a lot of mock drafts, and
That's
I'm
silly.
thinking,
Could you
what is it?
imagine? Could you imagine being in dynasty mode and drafting a guard in the first round?
Yeah,
of
Tyler
any
Booker.
draft?
It's Tyler Booker. And I just don't see the Chiefs putting guard at such a high priority.
Okay, well, here's the thing.
I think you've got enough on the team
Let's
that you can find that
Put
replacement.
this into perspective real quick. You're getting ready to overpay Trey Smith. And by all means, I love Trey Smith. I think he's
Right, but you're
earned
getting
what
ready
he
to pay an
gets.
insane
But
amount
you're
for a
going to
guard.
overpay a freaking guard. There's no reason to pay a guard that much. But we're going to do it. Are you going to turn around and invest a first-round draft pick in a guard, knowing damn well you need tackle help? That just
Also
seems
knowing
wild
that the
to me.
tackle help that you have on the team from the years prior. So Kingsley, the 2nd-round pick last year, I think he's more accustomed to playing the guard position. So why would you draft a guard and now that makes Kingsley a backup guard, or at worst, a backup tackle still, and you're still taking, like, in my opinion, you need the tackle more than the guard. I don't think it's rocket science, because next year it's very possible that they may say goodbye to Jawan Taylor. I know a lot of people think it's going to be set in stone. I'm not there yet. I don't know if they're 100% committed to getting rid of Jawan Taylor as soon as it's time to get rid of Jawan Taylor. It would not surprise me if they didn't pull something out of their hat this year and put him on for 2 or 3 more years, because he's young and athletic, and he got better this year. And if he continues to get better next year, then they're just going to be like, hey, he's still young and he's relatively cheap at that point. Like, he was overpaid
They
last
would have
year.
to keep him in the same ballpark, if not maybe get a
Yeah,
better
it's
deal.
wild to think about, but something
Yeah.
tells me that I just don't think they're ready to cut ties instantly. Like, it's going to see how good he is this season first.
Right.
But I think you need the insurance plan at left tackle, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Because
for sure.
the left tackle, if Jalen Moore does not pan out,
Then what?
you have nobody there now.
Then
you
it's
don't have the
Wanye,
Joe Tooney to
then
fall
it's
back on.
Kingsley. Then it's crying about it. Yeah, I'm with you. I think you have to do something at left tackle. If you want to invest a high draft pick in the offensive line right now, you go tackle or you go home.
The
That's
thing
just my
about it
opinion.
is I don't believe tackle, in my opinion, is a position in which, if you're not hitting a top 10, top 20 player, so if you're not getting Alt from last year, if you're not drafting like a Rashawn Slater from years ago, if you're not drafting somebody that is that good that can step in right now, and even this year, you got Will Campbell, who maybe could play guard more than tackle. You've got Kelvin Banks, who a lot of people are saying could be a guard over a tackle. Even those guys are going to step in and struggle in the rookie years. Kingsley was not ready to step in, and the Chiefs made the ignorant decision to not even really give him any competition throughout camp other than Wanye Morris. All the stuff he could have been doing, he was taking team 1 reps, and he didn't even get a lot of preseason. They were pulling him out of games early. Okay, they were treating him like a complete left tackle starting star, and then he gets completely demolished, and he was not ready in the slightest. And then that hurt that confidence, and it may be years before he gets that confidence back, if he ever gets there again. And I think tackle and offensive line in that whole regard is a position unlike any other. Felix Anudike-Uzomah, he's been pretty much a bust up to this point. He got better this year. But when he goes out and struggles, Steve, he just don't get to the quarterback, or he misses a tackle, or he allows, he gives up, like somebody pancakes him, and he somebody gets a 20-30 yard chunk play, and at the worst they get a touchdown. If a tackle or a guard lines up and sucks like Kingsley did, you get a $300 million greatest quarterback to ever play destroyed.
$500 million.
Half
$500 million.
Whatever it is, you
Yeah.
get him destroyed, and you can turn a game in a dime. Like, just in an instant, a blink of an eye. If you let by somebody, you don't get a hand on them. They hit Mahomes, God forbid, injure him, sack fumble, picks it up and runs it back. You can change a whole game. Whereas a defender, something like that, you have a little bit more of a leeway, in my opinion. So I think if you're going to draft a tackle, he's either got to play behind Jalen Moore, and he's got to learn, and you've got to be fine with that. Or you draft somebody that's ready to step in, and you don't BS and go back and forth like they did with Kingsley and everybody else, back and forth every time they're a little down. You're just going to have to deal with it. If that's the route you want to take, like when they chose Kingsley last year and he was the route they wanted to take, and he was named the starter, and he got pulled with the first team, and he didn't get to play all the reps in the preseason, it was BS to pull him like they did, in my opinion, because what was the point of all that? You went 4 months in the offseason telling him he was number one and he was the big D on campus, and then he gets eat up, rightfully so, by Trey Hendrickson in week 2, and he gets completely pulled, destroyed, and never put back in again except for in odd situations in which he still sucked.
Well, of course.
So what changed? What changed?
No, I agree. I think you have to make a decision there and stick with it. I don't think it should be a shuffle over at left tackle this year. Like, you make your mind up. If it's going to be Jalen Moore, it's Jalen Moore. If you're going to draft a guy, go with him, go with him. You just can't be playing musical chairs with the left tackle.
Look, if
It's just not
Jalen Moore
good.
comes in this year, Steve, and all through preseason, he looks very good. He looks good in camp. He looks good here. He looks good there. Are you buying it? Because Kingsley looked pretty good too versus our crappy defensive ends half the time. That's what I'm saying. Our defensive ends ain't even all that great.
I'm not buying
going up
anybody until they
against
get
in
out on the
practice.
field during the season and show it.
Like,
Then
if
I'll
you can
buy
go
it.
out there and beat George Karlaftis on 90% of snaps, I'll say you're decent. You're good.
You can stop a bull rush.
Yeah, you could stop a bull rush. we don't have anybody on the other side that's a true speed rusher.
No.
And you see Kingsley get destroyed.
That's what
with
these
that.
guys struggle with. That's what they struggle
And you
with.
don't have any competition on the other side that lets you know exactly where your guys are at in camp. That's why people thought Kingsley could do it last year. He had everybody fooled until he went up against a good speed rusher. Somebody with speed and power, you're getting destroyed with it.
Like
So that's what I'm
Hendrickson,
saying.
yeah.
The Chiefs don't have an elite pass rusher for these guys to go up against. So Jalen Moore could possibly look like God's gift to the left tackle
Well, we'll see
position
what
all
happens.
offseason.
We'll see. We'll have to see, though. You can't just take the word for it. Perry with the 5 bomb says if Hampton, Campbell, Simmons, Loveland, Egbuka, Scourton fall, what
That's a
would you
lot.
do? Trade out? And who would you choose? Man, so
Well, you'd have to look at your draft board. And for me right now, I mean, Will Campbell would be
Egbuka.
your number one.
yeah, Campbell ain't going to fall that far. None of these guys are. But if they were, Campbell, Egbuka, Hampton, and then take your pick on the others. I don't know. I think the only thing the Chiefs could do in a situation like that would probably be, unless there was somebody they absolutely had to have, you could trade back there and gain draft capital and still
I'm
get one
with
of these
you.
guys.
Like, if you look at that list, Campbell would obviously be your highest rated player there. Then I would say Egbuka, and then I would say Hampton.
yeah.
And then for me, probably Simmons, and then Scourton, Loveland, take them or leave them. I'm not in love with either one of those players.
You're not in Loveland?
No. I watched tight end film the other day, and I wasn't that impressed with Loveland. I think he's an undersized tight end that's kind of going to play more of like a receiving type role only. And if you can't block and stuff, you're just your own. He reminds me of like a poor man's Travis Kelce. Like just a big time poor man's Travis Kelce. I'm not a huge Loveland fan. Like I actually like the kid Elijah Arroyo from Miami a little bit better. I thought he looked more
A
athletic
lot of
and
people
bigger.
do like him. Appreciate the 5, Perry. I think in that situation, if Campbell's there, you'd have to take him or Egbuka or Hampton. But I think past those 3, it wouldn't really matter. Like if you want to take somebody, take them. If not, trade back, whatever. But I think if one of those guys were to fall that far, you take it off pure value.
Which is why in the mock draft where was it Mel Kiper gave us Kelvin Banks, and people were complaining about that. Kelvin Banks might possibly be the best left tackle, the pure left tackle in here.
Yeah, like honestly, I have him right up there with Campbell. People talk about Campbell constantly, and I do think he's really good. But I think Banks.
So if
as
you
far as
got
pass
Kelvin Banks to
protection-
fall to you at 31,
Yeah.
if anybody was angry over that pick, even if he turns out to be a bust, I guess he just does. That's just the name of the game. But in the pre-draft process, that guy is rated very, very highly when it comes to pure pass protection. His run blocking's not the greatest, but again, we don't run the ball very often. So
Well,
who
we
cares?
have guys like Kingsley and Wanye and all these guys that are great at run blocking. But what good does it do you?
Yeah, does it
same
protect
when we had
Mahomes?
same when we had Orlando Brown Jr. So, yeah, you definitely got to focus on the pass protection. But Mike, something else Albert Breer said was, hey, the value could be at defensive tackle. A lot of people like defensive tackle as the first round pick. You see different people in the comments
Yeah.
who are talking about how that's the move.
That's starting to be the
big-
sexy, like,
Yeah, Julia even
Chiefs
said Chris
pick.
Jones is not getting any younger. I think you have to look at it from a bunch of different directions there, and I agree with all that. The problem is, like, you're never going to replace Chris Jones. It's not going to happen. Definitely not in this year's draft. You have Walter Nolan, who is like a
he's more of the Turk
Small-
Wharton kind of guy.
yeah, he's not a Chris Jones. Kenneth Grant, he's a beast. That guy's a monster. He can
He's
do a
a
lot of
little
different
thicker.
things. My personal favorite, I wouldn't take him in the first round whatsoever, but Alfred Collins from Texas, I think would fit good in there with Chris Jones. He's 6'6",
332. He's
332. The guy pushes the pocket back. He doesn't necessarily get to the quarterback a lot, but he can help create pressure, and that's what Chris Jones needs. He's also a run stuffer, and he had the highest amount of batted balls in all of college football last year. So he's got the good hand-to-eye coordination. He keeps his eyes up, keeps his hands up, and disrupts. And that's what I think we could use in there. So if it's my opinion, if you're thinking defensive tackle, I'm thinking, hell, you could wait second or third round and get a guy like that.
Yeah. To me, like I said, I don't know if the Chiefs are going to replace. I mean, they obviously they've been looking to replace defensive tackle, but they've been going the way of bigger guys. Mike Pennell, that's who they picked up in the offseason. when they went to draft, they drafted the kid out of Texas a few years ago that was a bigger guy, Colburn. They've tried to draft Derek Nottie in years past, and he's never really panned out. They've always kind of went to that big guy that you would think would be like a 3-4 nose tackle, right?
Right.
I don't know why they tend to do that, but at the same time, when Turk Wharton was kind of battling his injury and working himself back, if you remember, they were really giving big time looks to Matt Dickerson, a little
Right.
slasher type guy yet again. So I think that you don't know which way they could go, and they could either go slasher or they could go big guy. So I think they may even look to do both. When Chris Jones come out in the draft, when he come out, he was 6'6", 310. Okay, so he wasn't the biggest guy. But if you just want to look at 6'6", 310, and you look down the board, there is not a single defensive tackle in this draft with the profile of 6'6", 310. The only 6'6" guys you got, okay, is Yahya Black from Iowa, who's 336. He's more of that big-time, thick body, okay? You've got Vernon Broughton out of Texas, who I really like. He's 6'5", 311. That's right at Chris Jones. That's right at him. You've got Warren Brinson from Georgia, who's 6'5". How big is he? 6'5", 315. So he's right there in the ballpark. And then you've got Derek Harmon, 6'4.5", 313. So he's close in weight. He's close on height. He's about 1.5 inches short. So for me, Walter Nolan is 6'4", 296. That's where you go if you want to replace. If he's there, that's who you get to maybe replace Turk Wharton. And I think that's an upgrade over Turk Wharton in the next 3 to 4 years. Turk Wharton turned himself into a good player. I think Walter Nolan could get there quicker.
Turk also dealt with a ton of injuries.
Right. So it depends. If Nolan stays healthy, I think he gets there quicker. He's just an all-around better prospect than Turk Wharton. I think Turk Wharton was undrafted. Don't hold me to that. He might, but from what I remember, though, the Chiefs have met with a couple of these guys, and Joshua Farmer is one they've looked at, and he's 6'3", 305. To me, that doesn't fit. That almost fits in more of the slasher type. 6'3", 305 is closer to Nolan at 6'4", 296 than closer to, you know what I'm saying, than closer to like your Derek Notties of the world. So maybe they're looking for more of a slasher, almost like a Binky style kind of guy. Like he wasn't the biggest, but he also wasn't the smallest, and he was very athletic.
I feel like Binky was pretty big. He was just athletic, right?
He was very athletic for what he did. So I think they could go that route. So, I mean, there's a few guys there, but like for me, like a lot of people are, it's like sexy to say the name, we need to go get Deion Walker. He's 6'7", 331. That's very possible because they've liked that big style body lately. But Deion Walker is like not super athletic. He's not going to give you much of a pass rush. And even in the NFL, he plays so high that I think Deion Walker would probably get moved off the line of scrimmage pretty easily. He would have to fix a lot of things, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know you're not the biggest fan of Deion Walker. He's a big,
I liked him at first, and I really like him throughout the process. But the more I watch him, Steve, when he goes up against NFL talent, he's just almost too big, and he don't know how to play low. And if you're going to win in the trenches, you got to be low.
Yeah, I think so too. There's a lot of guys that play very upright in this draft on both sides of the ball.
Right. Creed Humphrey would give up 25, 30 pounds against Deion Walker, and he would completely like dog walk him. You want to talk about Walker? He'd Walker him. He'd dog walker him to the end zone on about every other play. So he's got to learn to play with a little bit better leverage.
Right. So I guess I'll agree with Breer a little bit. I think if one of those two guys are there, then maybe the Chiefs prefer to go with that. But it has to be somebody noteworthy as far as offensive line goes to be available at the end of the first round. I don't even know if they're completely sold on those two. Like if they're there, they have to take them. I think if there's somebody else at a different position that's just as high on the board for them or higher on their board, I think they go with that instead. So, I mean, it's one of those things. I think it's going to be a pure value pick.
Do you honestly believe, who's the last running back? Because he mentioned Travion, Quinshon Judkins. He even mentioned a kid from Iowa. Okay. He mentioned, for some reason it's slipping my mind. I'll see it right here.
Caleb Johnson.
Caleb Johnson. Yeah, for some reason that was slipping my mind. Okay. If they went running back in the first round, which I don't think they'll ever do that again. I once you bust on Clyde and then you turn around, and I think there's a very few select guys that you would take as a first round. I believe the Chiefs were honestly considering that with the guy that went to the Lions a few years ago. I think Travion Henderson is a poor man's Jahmyr Gibbs, in my opinion.
Sort of, yeah.
I don't think he's with Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't think he's got all the athleticism, and I don't think he's got anything that reminds me of. I mean, he reminds me of Jahmyr Gibbs, but it's not going to happen. If you think you're getting Jahmyr Gibbs, you're wrong. So, is there a running back there that you would break the rule for and go ahead and take him in round one again? Because for me, it stops with Amarion Hampton.
Right. If it's not Genty or Hampton, then no.
Genty's not going to be there.
They're not following that. I don't think Hampton will either. Now, if there's a chance that he does, then maybe you think about it. Otherwise, no. The third best running back in this draft is probably Quinshon Judkins, in my opinion. And I don't think you
he was our number 3.
I don't think you can take him at 31.
I can't take him
That's
at
silly.
31.
Yeah, no.
To me, I think in a perfect draft scenario, Quinshon Judkins should be there between pick 50 and pick 60. So, yes, you may have to move up in the second round to get a Quinshon Judkins if you wanted him. Are you comfortable with doing that? Would you be comfortable if the Chiefs took best player available at number 1 and then in round 2 they traded up and got Judkins and gave up some draft capital?
Well, see, that makes things a little bit different, like when you combo stuff, right? So maybe you're better at taking this player in the first round if they move up and get another player in the second round. So if let's just say you're not comfortable with taking a running back in round 1, but Hampton falls, are you okay with them grabbing Hampton at 31 if they moved up in the second round and got one of these offensive tackles like Connerly or somebody?
Well, Hampton is a top 20 player.
That's what I'm saying. They're going to
So
take
you
pure value.
almost
If one of
have
those
to
guys
take it.
fall, they're going to take them.
Well, the only way you don't is if you let somebody come into the first round to get it,
Right.
and then you get a nice little draft haul to move back a few picks. That's what I consider. I honestly wish the Chiefs would move out of the first round. It'd be fun, in my opinion.
We'll see what happens.
That's how they got Chris Jones.
We got our boy Peter with the 5 gifted memberships. Let's freaking go, Peter. Let's go,
Pete.
baby. If you got one of those, make sure to thank them in the chat. I've already seen a couple people doing that. Appreciate y'all. Welcome to the ACU crew via Peter Ortiz, baby. And then we got a 10 bomb from Brenda. Says supporting the guys and the crew. Let's
you,
go,
Brenda.
Appreciate you. Thank you for the support. You guys are freaking awesome. Yeah, man, I think it's just a best player available type deal. And if you're not comfortable with a certain position, sometimes what they do in the next round really can make you feel a bit better
They did it
about
last year, did they not? Because people thought tackle. And we said Kingsley would be that's going to be one of the better tackles you're going to find there.
Right.
If you
Everyone
want a
thought
left tackle prospect.
We're in no different position than we were last season, to be
Right.
quite honest. Because everybody wanted to go left tackle, and then they traded up and took Xavier
took a
Worthy.
wide receiver, which
a lot of
nobody
people's
thought was
heads
really-
exploded. Boom, we needed a tackle. But then they felt a little bit better about it when they got Kingsley in the second round.
And then that was the right position for Kingsley
Yeah.
because he was even being talked about in the first. And then it comes to find out that like maybe or late second was a little too high for Kingsley the way he
Right.
played, or at least the way they used him. So
Right.
evaluation is tough.
Yeah.
It's not always a perfect science.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. It's all about their board and how it looks, right? Shout out Terry with the gifted membership. Let's freaking go, Terry. Appreciate you. If you got that, make sure to thank Terry in the chat. And then we got a 2 bomb from Slammin' Sammy Joe. I never get this name right. I'm sorry. I suck. It says draft Justice Haynes or Ontario Brown next year.
I have no idea who either one of those guys
So
are.
it's funny because I've actually seen people talking about these people. There are people that like to look ahead like next year.
Yeah.
And I've actually seen that conversation in some of our chats and comment sections on our videos where it's like, hey, we don't have to draft for this position this year because next year we could get this person. And you guys are ahead of the game.
But
You
it's
guys are
also one of those things where we don't know how this draft's going to fall. How in the hell could we possibly predict next year's? So these guys could be top 10 picks or something, you know? And
You all
never
are on
know.
another level.
Yeah, I don't even know who those names are. I've not even got through this year's draft class.
Yeah, hey,
I'm not going to go that deep.
get on Sammy Joe's level, man.
Go for it.
That's great. Peter, been a member for 5 months now, says I would be their defensive tackle for a taco and a Corona. I like it. I
Okay.
think he said somewhere he was 6'1", 200. 6'1", 200. I don't think you could pass for a defensive tackle, Peter.
No, man. I think you're probably going to have to play like linebacker, and you better be quick enough to do it.
Yeah, we're gonna have to work on that speed, Peter. We're gonna have to get that speed up to
You're going
par.
to have to play some linebacker, maybe a little fullback or something.
I guess. Let's see, Mike. We're not even big enough for defensive tackle. Those are some big boys in there.
No. Those offensive line would throw us
6'3",
around.
230-ish.
You'd be closer like a tight end.
Yeah,
You'd be a very small tight end, by the way.
and a slow one.
You'd be a small, slow tight end.
I'll go defensive end, and I'll play like Felix and Udiko Uzama. Okay, like I'll show up every once.
But you're
in a
just
while.
not fast enough.
Every once in a while, I'll get there though. When the things go that way.
Dude, I kind of want to do a. We should do like a mock draft or something.
Let's do it. We got a goal up.
I feel like all the
we'll
everybody in
let
here is
I
kind of
said that
talking
they could
about
pick.
draft, right?
They could pick the picks. Well, or how about this? We'll like have 50% or 33%, me and you each, and then the chat would have 33% in on who we pick in the picks. That's what we should do, and do like the first few rounds or so. That'd be cool.
Just do a 4-round.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see about it. Mike, anybody else in this draft? Have you seen? I've seen a lot of names falling, and the latest one I've seen on some boards is Omarion Hampton, which is mind blowing to me. But are there any of these guys that you see falling as like a must pick for the Chiefs? Like, hey, you can't pass that up. Is it Omarion Hampton? Is it Luther Burden? Is it? I don't know. I don't know if there's anybody that they have to pick, but is there anybody that's value is just so good that if they're there, it doesn't matter what you need, get them.
I mean, if you're looking at for example, if you're looking at our needs, right? If Kelvin Banks is on the board, yes, I think you have to take him. But if Simmons or Connerly's there, I believe you could almost trade out if you wanted to, and I wouldn't really be too upset. Would they? I don't know, right? I don't think Simmons and Connerly are must picks. Let's just put it that way.
Right.
Would you think they're must picks? Like if we're at 31 and Simmons and Connerly's there, like, do you think we have to take them? Like if we don't, the world's ending tomorrow.
No, I think if it's the best player on your board, sure.
Right.
If it's not, don't. Yeah.
If Omarion Hampton was sitting there at 31 and we didn't take him, would you kind of be a little upset? I think I'd be more upset with that one. Yeah. But at the same time, I don't know if we actually need a running back that much. He's just a top-rated player.
Right. It's like a value pick. That's what I was saying.
Yeah, I
Wouldn't
don't know who
would
would
you
be
love to
there.
get your eyes like on the Chiefs draft board? Wouldn't you just like to know where their head's at as far as management?
Yeah, I think
coaches
the
and
only
stuff?
people that are must drafts, the only must drafts, in my opinion, is probably going to be defensive players, a defensive end or a defensive tackle. And I think it probably stops with somebody like who? Like, I mean, Abdul Carter's not going to fall. Mike Green, he's been a little bit of off-season issue, but I don't think he falls that far.
Like
I'm
a
not
James
super
Pierce?
sold on a lot of them. See, even James Pierce, he's a little small.
I don't care, dude. I think that's the one that you might have to
Yeah,
grab
you don't
if he's sitting there.
care, but Spags does. And Spags ain't going to play a 230-pound defensive end that shies away from – James Pierce shies away from violence a lot. Like, he's more of a finesse guy. He's not going to be that dirty, go hit somebody kind
Well,
of guy.
that's fine. If you got three other guys on the line that do that kind of thing, if you got one that's getting after the quarterback with speed, I think
I'm
that's
just
okay.
saying, I don't know.
I don't put. He's not like the same size as like a Josh Uche or somebody they refuse to use. Like I don't think that he falls into that category. I don't think he's an outside linebacker. I think he's an edge rusher.
I mean, I'm fine. Yeah, I would say that as well, but he's a small edge rusher.
How big was Felix? I feel like he was undersized from what Spags normally like.
James Pierce weighs in at 6'5", 245. That's about a good 30 pounds lighter than he wants his edges to be setting edges out there.
Yeah, just a little light.
That's light.
Yeah. Get him in the weight room.
And he's not the most athletic guy either. He finished 22nd in all athleticism score at the combine. Yeah. So
I mean,
he had a fast 40. He had a 4.47, but you're not running 40s as a defensive end.
Well, I mean, you have to put it into perspective a little bit. Charles Omenihu sometimes looks a little long and lanky out there and looks kind of skinny, and he's almost 280 pounds.
Yeah, and he's huge. That's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say. And so, like, he's got an explosive first step and everything, but if you look at James Pierce, he's very, like, he don't have a lot of bend. He's tight in the hips a little bit. There's just certain things about James Pierce that I don't love. Like, he's still worth a first-round pick, yes. But I wouldn't, if it was at 31 and the Chiefs did not take James Pierce, it would not surprise me. That's all I'm trying to say. Like, I don't think he's a must draft.
There's a lot of players that us as fans think are like must draft type guys, and then they don't do it. But to me, Jason Pierce is basically Adafi Owe, right? I mean, what was his name before that? Jason Owe coming out the draft. He was just super
similar to
fast.
him. I can
How
see
big
that.
was he? Like, I feel like they're the same guy. They're just an edge rusher that has like a ton of speed and athleticism. Let's see. Owe was 6'5", 251. So that's almost on the money.
Yeah, I could see that.
So yeah, I mean, did we draft him? No, he ended up going to the Ravens. But did we pass on him, or did they draft him before us?
I'm not. I think
I'm
they
interested
drafted
to know that.
before us.
I'm interested to know that, because if we passed on Jason Owe, we're going to pass on James Pierce. But I'm thinking that the Ravens might have took him before we got to.
Well,
pick.
how big's Pierce again?
About the same size. I think you said 6'5", 245, something like that.
Yeah, 6'5", 245. B.J. Thompson's 6'6", 240, and we refuse to use that kid.
Well, I don't
mean,
know.
last year
we don't
he-
know yet.
Yeah, but he didn't hardly get many snaps, and he wasn't the prototypical Spags guy the first year. Like, he was, like, to me, B.J. Thompson's more along the lines of the guys that we brought in the offseason and never even used.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. I don't know if they would do that with Pierce. I don't think Pierce is enough of a freak, bendy, athletic edge rusher that I would think that it's a must draft, in my opinion. I could be completely wrong.
Yeah,
I've been
I don't
wrong
know.
before.
How would you feel about drafting a defensive end in the first round, like, knowing what's probably there if they took any of those guys?
I mean,
would you be
honestly, I'm not opposed to a pass rusher because I don't think our pass rush is all that great. I didn't think
Yeah.
it was that great last year. Brett Veach went out. His biggest offseason signing for the defensive line last year was who? The kid we brought back to play edge a little bit that was overvalued in free agency, Mike Dana.
Yeah, man, that's crazy because I did like Dana, but I don't
I
know
like
about
Dana,
what
but
we
I mean,
paid
come
him.
on, he can't be like your big time pass rusher. Even on Omenihu, we're still taking a chance on Omenihu. Like we think he could be better than he is, but he didn't look all that effective when he come back last year.
All right.
So I mean, who would I be happy with taking? I don't know if Mikael Williams from Georgia was the fall. I think that's a decent one. A lot of people like Shamar Stewart. I think Donovan Izuruku or whatever his name is from BC. I think he's too small. He fits in that James Pierce category. Princely, I know a lot of people like Uman Milan from Ole Miss. To me, I don't think he wins enough. Like when he gets beat bad. I'm not a huge fan of him either. I know the Chiefs have met with him, but I'm not a huge fan of him. Honestly, for me, there's one name. He's a little undersized, and he used to play outside linebacker. But honestly, I think he's a little short. He's like 6'3", but I like him, and I think he's like very. I think he's George Karlaftis mentality with Leo's physicalness, and then he's just got like immense upside as a pass rusher, in my opinion. And that's the kid from UCLA, Olufemi Oladejo. I love him. I thought he was
Say that name
awesome. Olufemi Oladejo.
Olufemi Oladejo.
Olufemi Oladejo.
Olufemi?
And he's from UCLA, and I rewatched the Senior Bowl last night, and he had, I want to say, 2 sacks. And, I mean, he just could get after the quarterback. I like him. I think he's a very good, like, early day 3 selection. I would love to have that guy.
Hey, Julia Gulia says, so do we draft a running back in the later rounds, or are we going to stick to DBs late? And that's
a great question.
I feel like it's a
because-
valid ass question because Brett Veach loves drafting both of those positions late in the draft. He went outside of the box with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and you see how that turned out. People think it was one of his biggest draft blunders. So do you think he just kind of sticks with that strategy where it's like, hey, I'm going to take these guys later? Mike, there are some guys that could be good late. Ollie Gordon being one of them. And there's one other one that always, the kid from, is it SMU? Brashard I can't remember his
Are you
name.
talking about the running backs?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of those.
Yeah,
that could-
Brashard Smith, I believe, out of SMU. I really
a
like
couple
him.
of yeah, and Ollie Gordon's cool too.
He's
Like,
a
there's
little
couple of guys-
undersized. I think Brashard Smith's under 200 pounds. So, I mean, he's more of like that Jarrett McKinnon slasher back kind of guy, and he's not the best not the best pass blocker back there. So, there's a lot of running backs I actually like. And I actually still think the Chiefs met with Ollie Gordon after the Senior Bowl. And going back and rewatching the Senior Bowl, Ollie Gordon looked like he had enough pop, and he was a very big, nice-sized running back. Ollie Gordon's 6'1", 226, so he's a monster. He's not the fastest. He ran a 4.6 with a 1.6 10-yard split, but Ollie Gordon can play, so it would not surprise me if Ollie Gordon was a pick late. Like, that's kind
That's
of
what I'm
like...
saying. There's some guys late there as far as running backs go.
So I don't know
I
if
mean,
they was
how
the draft
confident
one
are
early.
you that they will draft a running back in this draft?
I'm not super confident. I would say right now for me, I'd say running back, in my opinion, is like 50-50. And if I
But wouldn't
had
it
to
make
pick one
sense?
side, it'd be like 60-40 maybe.
I feel like it makes sense to draft one right now because everyone that we have in the running back room is on a 1-year deal.
Yeah, and you got to put – but here's the thing. I think if Pacheco has a good year this year, I think the Chiefs may extend him for like 3 years. I think they could re-sign him for 3 years because
It
I don't
depends.
think the price tag would be very high on Isaiah
It depends.
Pacheco.
I don't know. I think he got himself a decent little price tag, but after the injury
well,
and
yeah.
the, kind of the lack of production last year, then maybe.
But
not
also,
so
are
much.
are we sold on Pacheco going forward? Like, I love Pacheco, but he's kind of proved he's a little undersized, and he runs in such a way that he has shown some injury problems, like some reliability issues. Right?
Pacheco's not like the most dynamic running back in the world. Like,
Well, he is, but he's not. Right? His vision stinks.
I think that hinders him so much. It hinders him so much. I think.
You think working under Kareem Hunt last year and then early this year and getting a full offseason, you think that could help him with his vision a little bit?
I don't know how much can you teach someone natural vision, like field vision. I feel like that's almost comes to you naturally. Like you either have it or you don't.
True.
Like, now I'm sure you can
He can
get
teach
better.
him patience, though, and I think that would go a long
You can
way.
get better at it, or maybe, like you said, maybe patience. Like maybe he's just playing a little too fast, and that's why he's not seeing these things. I don't know, but I just don't know if Pacheco is the answer going forward. I don't feel like he is. I love Pacheco. I think he could have a role on this team in the running back room, but I don't think he's a number one guy.
Well, the
I
Chiefs
just
also
don't.
just had I think they're going to do a top 30 visit with Damian Martinez out of Miami.
I did see that today.
6'2", 217.
That's who we had at our number 10, correct?
He was our number 10 guy, and honestly, he could have probably jumped to 9 or 8, depending. I liked his film. Like I comped him to Steven Jackson. I don't remember who you comped him to. But we said if you found a modern day guy for me from Steven Jackson, I said James Conner. So like it's a guy that he's got a decent enough athleticism to him. But again, where's Damian Martinez going to get drafted? I would say round 3 at the earliest. If somebody really fell in love with him, maybe late round 2. But I would think round 3, round 4, round 5, somewhere in that range.
Yep. Hakai here says the two best running backs that fit our scheme, blocking, receiving inside and outside the tackles in the screen game, is Henderson and Judkins. I agree with that. I think they both are like the outside zone type running backs. They can both do a lot of things well as far as in the receiving game. I think they can both pass protect fairly well, but they're not big, like very big either.
Judkins is 6'2", 221. He's pretty big.
He's
guy.
bigger than Henderson. Judkins
He's
is like a little tank, bro.
Judkins is the same size as Amarion.
He doesn't
Hampton,
even
exactly.
he doesn't look 6'2", does he? Like you see him and he just looks like
He's 6
so.
foot.
Is that what he is? 6
Yeah.
foot. Okay. Yeah, but he looks very compact and like just ripped.
Yeah, he's got a perfect like running back like form, like a build.
I think
told you
Judkins
this
better
before.
than Henderson.
Yeah, I told you this the other day. I was looking through stats last year, and the most productive running backs in the NFL averaged 5'11.5", so right at the 6 foot mark, 217 pounds. So if you're not 5'11.5", 217, you wasn't one of the most dynamic yards, touchdown running backs in football last year. That was the exact average of the more elite, not elite-er,
Yeah.
the more elite running backs in the NFL last year.
Chiefs Tomahawk Talk says that Henderson is the best blocking running back in this draft. What do you think, Mike? Have you seen anybody that particularly
Yeah.
stands out to you as far as pass protection goes?
Yeah.
Who's that?
Taj Brooks. Taj Brooks is a better.
That's
pass
another
blocker.
guy that you could get a little later in the draft too.
Taj Brooks is in my opinion, Taj Brooks is the best, quarterback protector.
Henderson's good
he
too,
made
though.
Yeah, he's fine, but at 5'10", 202, he gets in the way. Taj Brooks at 5'9", 214 is a little bit more sturdy. I think he does it better. I would be willing to. I would like to be willing to know who the NFL thinks. But and to me, Taj Brooks isn't going to get drafted. I don't know. He may surprise you because Taj Brooks out of Texas Tech, he only ran a 4.52, and he only had a 10-yard split of a 1.56. And when you watch this film, he doesn't look like he's got NFL speed to break anything open. And then his 40 didn't really impress at the combine. So It's one of those things where it's like he does bring very, very good pass protection. He's got decent field vision, but he don't have that elite speed. So it's like, where would you draft a guy like that? So I think maybe round 3, 4. He's right with Damian Martinez, in my opinion. But if he went undrafted, it wouldn't surprise me either because I don't know if he's got that explosiveness, right? And that goes for Kyle Monangai from Rutgers. I think he's pretty good too, but he ran a 4.6, and so he could slide. So you just never know, right?
Right. Appreciate the 2-bomb, though, Tomahawk Talk. And then Perry here, he says, do you think Scadaboo's 4.65 drops him down boards? Like, I don't know if it does or not, to be honest, because I don't know if people expected him to run fast. Like, I don't think that's really what is
That's
appealing.
not his game. He's more of like the bowling ball type, right?
I don't know if that's the appealing part of Scadaboo's game is his insane speed. So I don't know if that really messes with it a whole lot. I also don't like. I've seen people having this kid in the first round of the draft. I don't think that's happening. I think that's wild.
No, I think if Scadaboo, I think with that 40 time, it
Third
may
round?
drop him
You think you get to the third?
Yeah, I think now more he's more like a late second to mid fourth, somewhere in that range. That's his sweet spot. If he fell past if he falls past pick 105 to 110, I'd be very surprised.
Yeah. I know you didn't mean it that way, but it's kind of funny. It's almost like you want me to be wrong. I said, third? And you said, somewhere between the second and the fourth.
Well, I'm just saying, I don't think it would be crazy if somebody took a shot on him at the late second.
No, I don't either. I think he's that good of a football player.
But yeah, okay, yeah, your average of a third round's right.
Yeah.
It also wouldn't surprise me if he fell out of the third round either.
Yeah, same. I mean, you never really know. I mean, there's like last year, we saw guys like Jatavion Sanders that was projected at the end of the first round for months, and he didn't go to like the third or fourth round.
Yeah, the
same
Panthers
with
ended up taking him, and he looked good, didn't he?
Yeah, and then the same with corner TJ Tampa. Everyone thought he could sneak into the back end of the first round. He ended up in the fourth round, right before we drafted Jared Wiley, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we were expecting the Chiefs to kind of go up and get him maybe, and they didn't do
so
it.
There's all kinds of guys that we and analysts and other fans
TJ
think.
Tampa would have been a fun pick considering what happened to our DB room last year, huh?
Yeah, well, Jatavion Sanders would have been a fun pick too.
Yeah, that's true as well. With Kelsey declining a little bit, Jatavion Sanders might have been your heir apparent.
Yeah, so it's kind of odd how you see certain players, we and analysts and even people in the chat and everything, that they'll love them, and you're like, that's a no-brainer. This kid has to be a second-round pick, and then
Isn't it always something small and insignificant that'll get these guys thrown down the boards? Like the kid that the Colts got in the second round that everybody said was a top 30 pick at one point, the wide receiver.
Josh Downs?
No, that was a few years ago. I'm talking about last year.
Last year.
Xavier Worthy's running mate there in Texas.
Oh, A.D. Mitchell.
Yeah, A.D. Mitchell. Remember, there for the longest time, he was number 4 or 5 wide receiver on everybody's board, and then something come out that he didn't take care of his body and his blood sugar was bad and this and that, and he ends up falling to the second round, and then he actually done pretty well if he would have had a decent quarterback. So
yeah,
it's always something strange, right?
Or there's a lot of things that we don't know as far as medicals go, or character issues, concerns, whatever. We don't get the whole story sometimes, so it's really hard to tell. Mike, I think
that's a great point you just brought up. Character issues. Damian Martinez, the Chiefs just met with him, Steve, and when we ranked him in our top 10, you said something that concerned you was the fact he had some DUIs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you said maybe the Chiefs won't even have him on the draft board. And I remember a quote saying, "What are you talking about? He's probably their number one back."
Yeah,
And then lo and
brought him
behold,
in
here he
for an
comes.
interview.
They brought him in for a top 30.
Damn it, you're just what we need.
They said, "A guy with
get over here.
a drunk driving guy, right on par for the course here."
We don't like people that drive according to the laws, okay?
Do you think, though, I know that they bring in sometimes top 30s to try to get to the bottom of things like that. Like, were you doing that? What happened? Like, they want to hear his side of the story and maybe how he's overcame that, right? Mm-hmm. And then sometimes you know that they've met with Quinshon Judkins, right? But they've never actually formally met with Travion Henderson, I don't think. And then we didn't go to the Ohio State Pro Day. We were one of the only teams that didn't send one out. We were the only team in the NFL that didn't put a
Well, that's funny because everybody's
day.
so adamant that we will take a Josh Simmons if he's there, or that we love Travion Henderson. He'd fit perfectly. Even Judkins, and it's like, nope, we're not even going to send anybody to that
Do
Pro
you
Day.
think, though, that the Chiefs just trust their internal scouting and they're like, look, Simmons will consider? And do you think Judkins could also maybe have gave them some info on Travion Henderson without linking the Chiefs to Travion Henderson, kind of like the way the kid that went to the Lions did? Remember when it come out a few days before the draft that the Chiefs were interested in him? And then lo and behold, the running back that they took, the Lions, that was good a few years ago from Alabama, the little scat back. I forget
Jahmyr
his name.
Gibbs?
Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs. Remember? That come out a few days before the draft that the Chiefs were interested in Jahmyr Gibbs and Andy Reid might take him in the first. Remember that?
Yeah.
And then the Lions ended up taking him in like the top 15 or 20.
Yeah, I don't know.
And if that report hadn't come out, he may have slipped right into our hands.
It is kind of interesting how they go about things, but yeah, not even showing up to the Pro Day there was an interesting choice.
Maybe that was trying to get
I'll
people
end
off
the
the radar.
Julia, if you'll stay off my back. Jeez, you didn't have to scold me. No, but for real, I had a poll going, Mike. It was, which position would you like to see the Chiefs draft in the first round? So what do you think everybody picked? It was O-line, defensive line,
Oh, the sexy pick, right?
wide receiver, and running back.
The sexy pick going around Chiefs Kingdom is obviously defensive tackle. They think we're going defensive
Yeah,
tackle.
41% did pick defensive line,
Yeah, I could've told you
38%
that.
offensive
That's
line,
offensive line.
13% wide receiver, and 6% running back.
I think one that you left off the list that would not surprise me if it went a little earlier, maybe corner.
Yeah.
There may be a corner or two that you could see being snagged in the second or third round.
Yeah.
Just because the Chiefs kind of need that. And then you got to look at like, well, is Jalen Watson going to be healthy enough to sign long term? Would you sign Jalen Watson long term? Would you give him a nice contract considering he's been a little injury prone, right?
Yep. Yep. Don't know. Chiefs Tomahawk Talk says that they might not go to pro days. They like to keep their cards close to their chest and just look at their top 30 visits from last year. Maybe on some of this stuff, but like I felt for the most part, the Chiefs pretty much who they draft in drafts are people that they've met with at one point or another. Like they almost always put out there and people overlook it. Like every year, which we're going to be doing our first one probably this
Probably
coming
this week. Yep.
but every year we do a mock draft that's strictly who the Chiefs are going to draft. So we'll go through and try to figure out who the Chiefs are drafting. Every year, Mike, so far, we've hit 2 or 3 guys in the draft, and that's pretty good. That's a pretty good batting average for us to hit.
Yeah.
And every year, it's just because we pay attention on who they meet with. Like whether it's a top 30 visit or not, or they just met with them at,
McDonald's.
met them at McDonald's, man.
That's
Like,
a true story. Did you know just the other day at Nebraska's Pro Day, the Chiefs sent Connor Embry, if you watched our video, right? Connor Embry laid low. Do you know who was running the drills that day? Was the Bengals. The Bengals love this guy, and apparently they took him to lunch after. So
Got
they
him-
met with him privately after.
They
took
got him a McDouble?
Yeah, they took him and got him the
Add
Angel
Mac
Reese
sauce.
meal. He was throwing up bricks the rest of the day. And look, so that does happen. So if I say, hey, they met somebody at McDonald's, it's possible. Why do you think the Bengals would be so infatuated, Steve, with another wide receiver? They
Which
just
one,
paid
which one
two.
did they take to get a McDouble?
Isaiah Nair.
Oh.
They are so intrigued. They ran they were the ones in charge running the thing. Like they really wanted firsthand look at this guy, but they just paid 2. And then they drafted the kid from like Princeton
People talk about the Jets, or the Giants
as being a weird franchise.
The Bengals have the worst front office in the entire NFL.
They're strange.
They
man.
suck. They make the worst decisions, and they are terrible. Like they
Yeah,
pretty much solidified the fact that they're not going to do jack
Steve,
shit
they
because
were
went and paid-
gifted. They were
Man.
gifted this little run they've had because of Joe Burrow. If Joe
Yeah.
Burrow had not been there, they'd have screwed this all up.
Mike, it doesn't even matter at this point. If you don't put an offensive line in front of them, you don't put a defense on the football field, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, they think
we've
Burrow
already
was gonna put
seen
up
Joe
70.
Burrow. We've seen what Joe Burrow can do
This
with
past
these
year.
top wide receivers, right? We've seen what he can do. They can score some points sometimes, and they can win 8 to 9, 10 games. But that's about it. And they might even get lucky and squeeze out in the playoffs and get a little further than they should. But they still haven't put a damn ring on their finger. That ain't going to happen. Not paying 2 wide receivers $100 million or whatever. That's crazy. Crazy talk.
So drafting one is out. I think the Bengals are blowing smoke. They've got to sit there and
Well,
draft all
hell,
defense.
Mike, I thought they weren't going to draft any in the last couple of years. They took Charlie Jones. They drafted the kid from Princeton.
That's what I was just saying.
Yeah, dude.
It's
I don't know.
constant.
They don't make a whole lot of sense.
They drafted Jermaine Burton last year.
Yeah. Which was a bust. I'm glad. Hey, I liked Jermaine Burton too, so I'm kind of glad
I
they
told
did
you
take
that.
him.
Stay away from that kid.
Yeah, well, that was the thing, was character concerns with him.
Yeah.
We got Peter Ortiz with a freaking 25
go,
bomb.
baby.
Let's go, Peter. Let's go, baby.
Peter.
He said Simmons sounds interesting, and I agree with him. I do think Simmons is very interesting.
Russell?
Yeah. Is that the guy from Run DMC?
I don't know. Wait, I'm thinking of Richard. Never mind.
Oh, you're talking about the guy that works
I'm
out.
talking the exercise man. Should we bring him? Put
Rest
him
in
in.
peace, Richard Simmons.
Did he
he's-
die?
Yeah, he can't play football no more.
That sucks.
But no, Josh Simmons is interesting. I think that if he hadn't had the knee injury, if he clears medicals, I think that he is a end of the first round pick. I think he's good. A lot of people think he's soft. We'll see that in the comments a lot. We'll see a lot of other things that like to nitpick on him. But then you have people that really dive into this tape and are just like try to debunk that stuff. I think Daniel Harms is a huge Josh Simmons guy. I think he looks good on tape.
Does he? Does he like him?
Yeah, I think on tape, Simmons is good. Like when I watched and I evaluated, I think that he's an easy back end of the first round guy if his medicals check out. If it wasn't for that knee injury,
Yeah, if that knee injury didn't happen last year, I think he's probably right there with
Mid-
Kelvin
yeah.
Banks and Will
Yeah, mid
Campbell
first
as
round.
their top 3.
I agree. So I do like him. I do think he's interesting, Peter. So shout out to you for the 25 bomb. Let's go, baby. Let's go. Y'all put some legendaries in the chat for Peter. Always supporting your boys.
Bro, Nick said my mom passed away today. Dude, that sucks. That's horrible. Thanks for going live to bring a little joy to me this evening. I appreciate you guys. Cancer sucks. Cancer does suck, Nick. Sorry for your loss, brother. ACU crew's praying for you. I know people's going to shout you out in the chat. Yeah, I'm seeing it. So, man, that sucks.
Damn, dude. Yeah,
That
that
sucks.
sucks.
That's the
Heart-
one thing
heart
in
goes out
life
to you,
that
man.
you're not prepared for, right? Is like death of a parent. That's probably the one thing that you just can't
Yeah.
brace yourself for until it happens. And then you're like, how do I do it? But,
Yeah,
yeah,
I hate
man.
to hear that.
Hate
Hate
it.
to hear that.
Sorry, bro.
Yeah. Let's see here. What did Chiefs Tomahawk talk said? Let's talk some wide receivers. Who's the top 5 wide receivers that fit our scheme? So if you go back, we already did a top 10 wide receivers. Mm-hmm. That might have been members only. I can't remember for sure. We do
I
so
don't
much
think it
members
was. I don't
only
think
stuff
we've
now.
moved it there yet.
But either way, top 5 that fit the Chiefs. If we just go strictly who fits the Chiefs, Mike, who you got at number 1? Who's the number 1 wide receiver in this draft that fits the Chiefs? Because I would go with Emeka Egbuka, and he's out of our reach.
Yeah, he's out of our reach, so I won't even start there.
Yeah.
I think Travis Hunter's out of our reach. Igbuka, Ted
Obviously.
McMillan.
Have you seen Travis Hunter play basketball, by the way?
No, is he good?
This
Why wouldn't
dude's
he be?
insane at everything. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure
I
he
mean,
was
he's-
created in a lab.
I told you he's an athlete, man.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I think maybe you could say Matt Golden's potential, but I think you'd have to trade up for Matt Golden, so I won't
Golden
even start
would be
there.
sweet, but yeah.
So the first one I'll say for us is probably Luther Burden, honestly.
I like, Luther Burden's a
I
good
think
fit.
Luther Burden would be the first guy that you would probably put on our board. Again, he's 5'11", 205, so I mean, he's thicker
He's a
than
slot receiver,
Xavier
though.
Worthy, right?
He's a slot receiver.
Yeah, he's going to be able to do more things than Worthy gives you as well, in my opinion. I think his body holds up better. I think he's a little more physical. 4.41, that's elite speed. It wasn't as fast as we thought he was going to run. I actually think that his straight line testing speed at 4.41 is slower than his actual playing speed. Like, if I would have looked at Luther Burden's playing speed, I'd have said this guy's a 4.3 guy, right? But he wasn't, and his production got a little low. We've talked about this. It could be a quarterback issue. He may just got bored this year. Who knows? But I think Luther Burden for me would be the number one guy in our range that I think would fit our system. Because again, you could say a guy like Jaden Higgins. I'd love a guy like Jaden Higgins at 6'3", 217. But it's debatable whether the Chiefs would take a guy that's 6'3", 217, and would they incorporate a guy that's 6'3", 217. So I think I would start my number one guy at Luther Burden. What about you?
Yeah, for sure. And, that's the thing. They've been talking about Luther Burden falling in the first round. I'm not so sure it happens. Some people have him as far as the number 3 wide receiver in this draft on their draft board. So, I mean, there's a good chance somebody could take him easily. He might not fall the Chiefs. If he does, I think he's...
When we done our top 10, Steve, we actually had him at number 6. We had him just slightly behind Higgins, but only because Higgins, in my opinion, is elite metrics across the board. And for somebody... they could take a shot on a 6'3", 217 guy. And maybe even the Chiefs. The Chiefs were looking at Isaiah Nayer. He's 6'4", 218. So is 6'3", 217 that far off?
Right. Now, I had Luther Burden higher. You had him a little bit lower.
Yeah, I had him a little lower. You had him a little higher.
So, I mean, but I do think probably 6 could be fair for Luther Burden.
I think 5 or 6. Him and Higgins is probably flip-floppy.
Yeah, I think so too. Like you said, Higgins is bigger. He's like 6'4", right? 6'4", 215.
Yeah. Who would be your next guy that you would put in
for the Chiefs?
Yeah, after Luther Burden, who would be your next?
Jalen Noel or Jalen Royals? One of those.
Both of those. I can put both of those on there. So yeah, I think that would be 2 guys.
Yeah, because Jalen Noel, he's smaller. He's 5'11", 200 pounds.
No, Noel's 5'9".
It says 5'11". Did they measure him at 5'9"?
He's at the combine. His official's 5'9", 196.
Jesus, his hair must have been puffy that when they measured him the first time.
4.39 though is what he
actually
he
can
ran.
fly.
He got the 4 threes.
He's a vertical slot receiver. He's dangerous.
He's from KC too.
Like that kind of stuff, man. Jalen Royals, he's 6 foot 205, I think, somewhere in that range. He's a 4.4 guy. He's just very smooth. To me, Jalen Royals is more well rounded than some of these other guys. But I think those are the ones that kind of fit into what the Chiefs do, to be quite honest about it. Because, I mean, you start looking at, like, obviously, if you go all the way to the top, people they're not going to get. We've already talked about Matt Golden, probably not falling that far, but he would fit right in that. 6 foot, 195 pounds. He's a little bit smaller. But, like, Tet McMillan, 6'5", that's not a Chiefs guy. Honestly, I think Emeka Egbuka could be a Chiefs guy. He's 6'1".
Yeah, but I just don't think
But Jaden Higgins, 6'4", Trey Harris, 6'3". Like, these are guys I don't think the Chiefs will use, to be quite honest about it. I think kind of the biggest guy the Chiefs might go for would be like a Jack Besh, and that's because they could move him into tight end if they wanted to.
Yeah, I was going to say Jack Besh. I want to put him in there because I believe with the Chiefs.
Someone else that I think is a sneaky play for the Chiefs, especially in the second round or early third round, Isaiah Bond.
Possibly. He's got the potential, but, I mean, he's 5'11", 180. That's basically the same kind of guy you just drafted last year.
Right. But that tells you what they like, right?
Yeah. Jack Besh is a guy, though, I really like at 6'1", 214, and the reason is because he's a weapon. He's like Brock Bowers. He doesn't really have a specific position. He can play H-back if needed to. He can play tight end. He could be like a Noah Gray kind of guy if you need it. He can play on the outside. He can play the slot. I really like Jack Besh. Steve, I think a guy that we've not really talked about a lot, but I think has potential to be a Chiefs player, a second round, a third round guy, if he were to fall this far, but I think he's done a lot for himself in the combine, is Ty Felton from Maryland, 6 foot 186. He's a little on the smaller side. I wish he weighed closer to 195. But at 186, I think he could put a little muscle on, but he was elite in his categories and all his running. He was 4.37. 40-yard dash, which was super fast. I think only Matt Golden was faster. And then 4.37, he ran a 1.5, 10-yard split, and he had a 39.5-inch vert. So he could play. So if they want to go to that little slot type receiver, if you really want somebody like that, and again, I don't know why they would. We've got so many of these guys, right? But at the same time, this is the only guys we continue to draft are the Luther Burdens and the Jalen Knowles and the Ty Feltons, right? Like, we do not hardly take that big X receiver. The last one we drafted probably was who? Cornell Powell? And, I mean, he wasn't even that big. I think Cornell Powell's like 6'2".
Yeah. So there's one, we always talk about Jack Besh and how he could play tight end. I think there's another wide receiver that you could convert to tight end in this draft, and I think he would be good.
Who you got?
Isaac Tesla. Or however he says his name.
Yeah, Tesla could.
The kid from Arkansas. He's like 6'4". He ran a 4.4 freaking 3, Mike. Like his ceiling, I think his ceiling in this draft is so much higher than where he's going to get drafted.
Yeah, he's 6'.
Because he's going to be a nightmare of a matchup for people. He's 6'4" and runs a 4.4.
Yeah, he's 6'4", 214. So he's not the smallest kid either at 214. He's got a frame.
I think it's about the same weight as Jack Besh, and he's got a couple inches on him and a lot more speed.
Jack Besh was 214 and Tesla's 214, and he's got 3 inches on him. And actually,
what did Besh run a 40?
Besh did not run at the combine. He's going to go at his pro day. Tesla ran a 4.43 with a 1.51 10-yard split, a 39.5-inch vert. So he's elite.
Can you imagine that?
And he's got elite arm length, or elite hands. I'm sorry, not arm length.
And a lot of people have this guy ranked outside of the top 30 wide receivers in this draft, which is insanity. And then on top of that, like, if you could convert him and use him in like a Kelsey-esque role, I don't know how good his hands are. I'd like to look more into that. But that kid.
There's a few other guys that could do that with Tesla. Since you mentioned that, Daquan Felton from Virginia Tech, 6'5", 213, monstrous kid, 6'5", 213. And I honestly think the kid from Tennessee, who's nobody's really talking about a lot, but he is Brew McCoy, 6'2", 215. He didn't run, but Brew McCoy has got some weird film, and at wide receiver, he's got some film that literally looks like explosive, dynamic, cannot be stopped at that 6'2", 215. But then he's got some film at times that just looks horrible. So I think he's going to be a wide receiver 3 no matter where he goes, and possibly a wide receiver 2 at worst. So I wouldn't be surprised if Brew McCoy doesn't actually sneak himself into top 100. It would not surprise me at all if you see that name. And a lot of people don't even have Brew McCoy mentioned in their top 10, 15. But I think he's like a dark horse kind of guy.
Yep. TGZ, been a member for 16 months now, says, how do you guys think we'll address the weak middle of the field defense? Great question. Also, my condolences to Nick. ACU fam is here for you. Absolutely, Nick. Once again, hate to hear that, my man. Mike, how do you think they kind of address that weak middle of the field? Because that's been a problem for the last couple of years. We've had a top-ranked defense, top 5 defense for 2 years running. I think, is it 3 years? Just 2.
Yeah, it's been right
Either
up there,
way,
man.
that's been our big problem. We let up too many long third downs.
Yeah.
And we always let it up in the middle of the field because we suck at covering tight ends. Or it's just always drop back into some kind of zone lately last year and allow them to find a soft spot in the middle of the field. We got to figure that out. How do you think they address it? Do you think they address it?
I mean, honestly, I think they may look at a linebacker to help with that. Isn't that what you need? You need some good coverage linebackers. And then again, Nick Bolton, he's always looked at as a bad coverage guy. Like, that's his thing. But Nick Bolton, we debunked that a little bit. He actually finished top 3, top 4 out of all linebackers in coverage, which is the weirdest stat. That blew my mind. That would be on par if you told me like Sky Moore was a top 20 rated Pro Bowl guy. I'd be like, what? But the other guy, so I mean, they may look in the draft for somebody like because again, I think we talked about this the other day too. I think that Leo probably gets signed back here, and I think his playing time needs to increase. And the reason it may not is because of Drew Tranquil, who I think had a better first year than a better second year. I thought Drew Tranquil's pass coverage, which is what he was known for, right? I thought it looked really bad last year at times. So if they went to the draft, I could see them looking at somebody, like a Shamar James. I think the Chiefs actually met with him out of Florida. But Shamar James will be a guy. I think another dude that's going to fly up some boards is Carson Schweisinger from UCLA. He's only played football for 1 year. And I think if you tell me that he looked as good as he did on film for one starting year of football, I want my linebackers coach to get their hands on this kid because you may have a monstrous linebacker. And I know everybody just wants to talk about Jihad Campbell this and Jihad Campbell that. But there's a few guys that can play that position. I know Pops likes Jack Kaiser out of Notre Dame. I'm sure, Kay Wayne probably knows all about Jack Kaiser. He's a Notre Dame guy. But there's a few guys there that they could look at. But, I mean, beyond that, what are you going to do? I don't really know anything else you could do because, again, Nick Bolton rated pretty high. So,
yeah. Man,
do I believe it, though? Like, do you believe the PFF score with Nick Bolton on the coverage, though? Like, a lot of people don't buy into PFF. I think PFF does a pretty good job at what they do. They're just normal dudes that go out and watch. But there are some flaws to the PFF game. I understand that. But my thing with PFF, though, is that they keep everybody, like, you might not like their system, but they grade everybody on the same system. So at the end of the day, if you're like, well, that PFF score don't make sense, well, it's like, well, then you can't use PFF to say somebody else is good if you can't say they're bad because everybody's getting graded on the same system.
Yeah, that's true. At least there's like a set of criteria, right?
Yeah, it's a set of criteria. So we may not like them and people may not agree with the criteria, but everybody gets graded within that set of criteria.
Yeah. Perry with the 2 bombs says, what about Dante Thornton?
Yeah,
6'5"
that kid's
and runs
monstrous
4.3
too.
late. Man, what about Tyquan Thornton? What are they going to do with that kid? We have him on the practice squad.
He's definitely going to be a camp body, and is Tyquan Thornton going to be the guy that maybe gets rid of Sky Moore? Could he be the guy that comes in and gives us that speed roll?
I actually saw somebody in the chat earlier. They mentioned something we had talked about several months ago. But is Sky Moore worth a 7th rounder? Like, will somebody trade a 7th round for Sky Moore?
I don't know.
Or a 6th rounder even?
You would think there would be somebody out there that thinks they could give them to the receivers coach the same way Brett Veach thinks he could do it, right? He thought
like
he
the
could do it.
Cowboys or somebody like that.
Yeah, Brett Veach goes out and gets these guys that he thinks he can scout. And there's had to be somebody else out there that was a Sky Moore guy that would maybe give you a 6th or 7th round pick for him. But I think what's happened is the Chiefs fan base run this guy into the ground so hard.
We didn't help ourselves with that, did we?
Right. They've run him into the ground so hard and that it's almost got to the point to where, remember last year when he dropped the ball and they said Veach was slamming stuff in the thing? So it's almost like they know the Chiefs don't really value this kid. So why are we going to give it up? Like, the Chiefs are going to eventually just cut him.
Right. Yeah.
So we don't have to give up nothing for him.
That's true.
So there may be 1 or 2 teams out there, but they may just go ahead and just go for a bidding war when he comes on the market. I mean, what are you going to have to give up for him? A bag of Doritos?
Dante Thornton, though, he's an interesting one for
Dante
real.
Thornton's good, man.
I mean, he played good competition. He was at Tennessee, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, he played good competition. He put up some good numbers. He's 6'5", running a 4.3 is pretty insane.
Yeah.
But then again, would the Chiefs use him? Is he too tall? Are they discriminatory of tall people?
Yeah,
They
they're
don't
very
like
racist.
to throw tall guys to football. Yeah, they don't love it. They're like, look, you're too tall.
Yeah,
You're too
Deontay
tall.
Thornton is a monster. He's the tallest. Him and Daquan Felton are the 2 tallest wide receivers in this draft. I think Savion Williams is also 6'5". So
Yeah,
there's
he
3
is, too.
6'5" guys. But yeah, if you look at he ran a 4.3 40 with a 1.51 10-yard split. That's insane.
Yeah.
He's got 33-inch arms almost. He's got 32 and an eighth inch arms. So I mean,
he also played at Oregon, correct? Is that where he was before Tennessee?
he may have transferred over from Oregon. Yeah.
Yeah, he did. 2021, he played 14 games with Oregon. Had a couple touchdowns. 2022, played 11 games, started 3 of them, had a touchdown. 2023, played 9 games, and then that's where he left out of there.
Yeah, I think the Tennessee Pro Day is going to mean a lot for Brew McCoy and Thornton, because Brew McCoy didn't even run at the combine, but he has elite height, weight, arm length, and hands. He's elite across the board right now. So when we get to test his 40, his 10-yard split, and his vert, if he were to be elite in all 3 of those categories, which means he runs a 4.4, he's in a 1.5 10-yard split, and he jumps over 38 inches, he's going to be in the elite category across the board.
Well, the
And there is
problem
no
with
other wide receiver in this draft that's an elite category across the board.
Daquan Thornton's problem is he runs a very limited route tree. He's got like
He's from Tennessee,
He
Steve.
got 3 routes there, buddy. That's all. Yeah,
He's from
that's all
Tennessee.
you're
This was the knock on
Jalen Hyatt.
yeah, Jalen Hyatt. That's why I said I don't think he would translate too well. And I mean, he actually did something his rookie year, but you've seen this past year, Jalen Hyatt fell off the earth.
Well, that's the thing with Thornton, though, and that's why the only reason I could see it being intriguing for the Chiefs is just because he's got the speed. He can be a home run hitter, right? He can make the house calls. Maybe a deep threat of some sort. I mean, I think over his career, his average yards per catch was 21.9 yards. So, I mean, that's literally what he's going to be used for. Could we stick him out on the field and just stretch the field with him? I don't know. It's interesting, though. I do like that one. Slam and Sammy Joe says Watts, Ursery, Arroyo, and Mason Taylor at 63 and 66. So if you could pick a combination of those two at 63 and 66, who are you taking, Mike?
Honestly,
Arroyo's
Ursery in the second
interesting.
round, I wouldn't be opposed to.
Yeah, no.
That's about his run for me is somewhere between 40 and 60. Probably for me, there's probably some NFL guys that say, hey, that's a huge guy. I can do something with him. And he may even go at the end of the first or early second. But I think Ursery around pick 50 to 65, somewhere in that range is what I like. And I actually like Arroyo a little bit better than Mason Taylor. I know Mason Taylor's got the bloodlines. That's Jason Taylor's son.
Arroyo's fun to watch, though.
He's got the bloodline, but Arroyo, to me, if you watch what he done in Miami with Cam Ward, he had a good quarterback. He had a mobile quarterback, so he's used to coming back for the ball. He's used to keeping a play together, Steve. We said that with Kelsey. That may be why Mahomes-Kelsey got a little odd this year. It's because Kelsey wasn't keeping the play alive like he used to do.
Right.
They looked a little different. Arroyo's got that quality. Arroyo's got good size. Arroyo's got decent speed. He's got great athleticism. I really like Arroyo. People may be surprised how high I have Arroyo up the board, but spoiler alert, he's above Mason Taylor for me.
Yeah.
That may not be a popular opinion, but I watched them
don't know.
both, and I didn't think Mason Taylor was all that great.
I got him ahead of him, too, on mine. So,
Good deal.
yeah, we'll see.
So we're Arroyo
going to be
guys,
doing
huh?
that soon anyway.
You remember Bronson Arroyo, pitcher for the Cincinnati Reds?
Yeah.
Did you know that guy can flat out sing?
No.
He's one of the best singers I've ever heard in my life.
That's
Bronson
funny.
Arroyo.
Appreciate the 2, Sammy. And then 5 Bomb from Flip says, what's up, ACU crew? Hey, fellas, just wanted to ask, what are the top 2 or 3 players from the draft that we cannot skip on if he's still on the board? We talked about this a little bit
Kinda
earlier,
had
Flip.
that conversation, yeah.
But I think the top 3 for me, just off the top of my head, like if they're sitting there, you better take them. I'll go Hampton. If Amarion Hampton falls to 31, jump on it. Run.
I
to
think
the
that
podium.
I think he would be acceptable to go ahead and take
Luther
first round
Burden,
running back
to me,
again.
if Luther Burden's there, get him. I mean, I understand there's a little bit of drawbacks, but the way he could fit into our offense as a slot, knowing that we have Xavier Worthy and Rashi Rice, Hollywood Brown, do it.
And if your offensive line doesn't look
Josh
good this year,
Simmons.
that's a guy you can get it to.
Josh Simmons is the other one. If he's at 30 or 31, sure. I think that he's worthy of that if the medicals are clear. But those are my 3.
I like those. I mean, I find it hard to argue with it. I'll stay in that same vein, and I'll say Kelvin Banks if he were to fall.
Yeah, him too.
I'll give Kelvin Banks, but at the same time, I do like Simmons better than Connerly. I like Simmons better than Connerly. Who's another guy? I agree with you with Amarion Hampton. I think if he's there, you almost have to consider taking him because he is such a good talent. But if the Chiefs didn't, I wouldn't be surprised. So I'll go ahead and put Luther Burden there to a certain degree because I still think we need to invest in our wide receiver room. The way this team's built, you need to invest, especially with the fact that, you're still looking at Hollywood probably being gone after this year. And you've now got, Rashee Rice getting ready to come up for an extension, and we don't know if he's going to get suspended. You had to say goodbye to Hardman. He's gone now. Justin Watson's gone now. Maybe Nico Remigio steps up in the room this year. Who knows? I don't know, but there's still a little bit like who would you take, Steve? Nico Remigio, or would you take Luther Burden?
I'm taking Luther Burden all day.
Yeah, I think we all take Luther
Yeah.
Burden there.
Yeah.
So I think Luther Burden might be on that list. You could be onto something there. And then the last guy is, I would say, I think it would be dumb to pass up a Walter Nolan right there as well. I don't love Walter Nolan, but I do think for the fact that 31, you may not get another guy with his athleticism late in the second. So I think defensive tackle may be a position that if you could get a Nolan or you could get a Derek Harmon, you almost have to consider that right there.
You know who scares me?
For me, the only guy that I would consider later would be Jared Birch.
Walter Nolan
really
scares
like him.
me. The defensive tackle
Me
scares me
too.
at that point. And I'll tell you why. There was a guy with just as crazy as athleticism. Now, he was a little bit heavier than Nolan, but he still kind of like everybody was talking about this kid. He was so athletic. He was so quick off the first step. You had to have him. He was going to be a Chris Jones. Mozzie Smith. And he's been
Yeah, but
garbage.
Mozzie Smith was a big guy. He was almost like a nose tackle kind
He's
of
like
guy.
330.
Yeah,
I
he's
think.
huge.
But
Nolan's
like he
more
was
of
still, I'm just saying the athleticism, just high athleticism, they don't always translate.
I
And
get
Walter
it, but I
Nolan
do
had
think-
and Nolan had a bunch of garbage tape.
Now that
Like-
Turk's gone, Steve, and they have brought back Pinnell, so at least you've got the bigger body run stopper. You don't have the Turk guy. So do you want to go back to Matt Dickerson, or do you want to maybe take a shot on Walter Nolan?
I get it, but at the same time, I feel like it's a big time risk. You're risking big time to have another
I'm not
bust at the
saying
end
that
of the first
Nolan
round.
is 100% going to
Yeah.
pan out. But I think with his athleticism, he may be a guy right there that you're like, I don't know
It
if I
could
can
be
get
a
that
home run hit.
athleticism again.
It could be a home run, but it could also be another. Damn, we wasted another first round on this dude that never panned out.
Yeah, he could be almost like a Felix and
Yeah,
Dike
exactly.
Uzama
That's
because,
my point.
but like, I don't know if you're going to get a Josh Farmer to fall to the into the second round. So like, you're kind of limited. I do like Jamari Caldwell. There's a lot of Oregon kids I actually really like in this draft, which is really weird. And I like Darius Alexander from Toledo, but I think Alexander probably goes before we pick. So
Yeah. Sammy, no, I don't think that Nolan's over Harmon or Grant. I mean, that's just me.
Grant's higher, 100%. I think Grant's higher.
I almost like Harmon better. But
Yeah,
But-
I've not got my final rankings there with defensive tackle,
I've just started watching defensive tackle tape last
but
week.
they're right around top 3 to 4. All
Yeah.
of them.
But yeah, I'm just saying, I don't know what it is. And maybe I'm dead wrong, but Nolan scares the hell out of me.
There's one guy that everybody talks about a lot though from A&M, Shamar Turner. And I've watched a little bit of Shamar Turner, and he did not impress me. And people are saying he's like a round 1 lock, and I'm like, what are you seeing that I'm not? So I've got to very much pay attention. I can't wait to dive into the defensive side because we've almost got it done. We got to do what? Tight end? I think that's it.
We're doing tight ends,
And then we're going
gonna
to
go
the
ahead and get to the
defense.
defense. Yeah, we need to get on the horse, Mike.
Well,
Get
we're going to
back
have
on
tight
that
ends
nag.
Tuesday.
Yeah, we'll do that, and we got to get our first mock draft.
And we'll do
out
the first
for
mock
the
draft
Chiefs, so-
probably Thursday, and then we'll start
Yeah.
all defense.
Yeah, shout out Buck and Bob being a member. Also, shout out Buck and Bob Take on Chiefs Kingdom podcast. If you like podcasts, check them out. Be on the lookout. Might see a couple of guys from All Chiefed Up on there soon. So just
Possibly.
be on the lookout for that one. Appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for being with us tonight. It's been a fun one, but we're gonna have to get at it. We got a lot more content coming up for you this week, though. Like Mike said, we're gonna be ranking the tight ends, and then we'll move over to the defense. Once again, a bit of a schedule for you guys to kind of know what's going on with us. Monday, Wednesday, Friday will be video releases. Appreciate you guys watching those lately and hitting that like button and getting in the comments. That's been much appreciated. Tuesdays, Thursdays, right now they're kind of slotted for daytime members only live streams. So if you're a member, you can see those. If you're not a member, go be one. Join.allchiefedup.com. It just costs $4.99 a month and you'll get all the extra content. We also just gave away a Josh Gordon Weed jersey on a members only live stream.
We did. The Josh Gordon we
Hey,
did I have it?
JCP won that bad boy. Let the boy watch. So yeah,
Josh
go be a
Gordon
member.
signed weed jersey.
If you're not one, you should be. And then, of course, on Saturday nights, we're doing this live stream for the public, and it's been good. We'll continue to do the same schedule as long as it works well for everybody, and we get the support we need and all that good stuff. So appreciate it. And before we get out of here, Mike, we do have a 5-bomb from Randy. Says, I would like to see them draft a defensive tackle.
I think that's where everybody's at. I think the majority of the kingdom's right there with you.
Yeah, I think so. Mike, I think we're losing you a little bit. Mike's dipping out a little early tonight. He said, you know what? It's Saturday.
Sorry. It's my internet, man. it on this line.
It's all good. Right on cue, though. Right on cue. Appreciate the 5-bomb, my man. Appreciate you guys being here. Do us a favor. Hit that like button on the way out if you haven't already and all that good stuff. And we'll catch you next time. Go Chiefs, baby.